Welcome back to Houston Life. After a natural disaster, it's understandable to feel scared and uncertain about the days ahead.
And in addition to that, in the process of restoring power and cleaning debris, we can become vulnerable to scammers trying to take advantage of the situations. That's why we invited CEO of Crime Stoppers Houston, Rania Mankarious. She joins us now by Zoom with her best tips for spotting scams. Rania, your office, Crime Stoppers, there in Midtown, is without power. So you're joining us from your local coffee shop. Thank you for making time for us today. And in case our viewers didn't know, you're the host of the Balanced Voice podcast, also author of The Online World, What You Think You Know and What You Don't. You are the expert when it comes to crime. We're going to try to get rid of that little box on your face. There you go. It's gone. But let's start with the scammers, because this is something that is sad but true, Rania. People maybe knock on your door. They show up and say, hey, I see that you have roof damage. We can fix it for you. Red flag for a scam.
Absolutely. And they pick on vulnerable moments, and we're all in a vulnerable time. And then they pick on things you can't really access yourself. I mean, not all of us can jump on the roof and see if there's damage, and it makes sense that there could be. So you want to be careful of them using the weaknesses and all of us, these key points that come out of the storm, as a way for them to potentially make money. What we want you to do is, we all know these storms are coming. So beforehand, have your people lined up. If you're going to have a problem with the roof, who are you calling? If you're worried about an insurance issue, what agent do you call? If you're worried about flooding, how do you handle it? If you can do it beforehand, that actually saves a lot of trouble for all of us in the aftermath of a storm.
Absolutely. And these scammers, like you said, they'll take advantage of someone who is in a vulnerable position. So how do I feel like elderly are often susceptible to this. How do we warn our neighbors about this? I mean, what kind of conversations are we having?
You want to talk about the key elements. One, scammers come out in disasters. They're going to look for ways to do physical repairs. They'll offer to clean up your yard. They'll look at flooding issues. They'll say, let us check your insurance. Oh, did you hear that the government is offering this program? They're going to do whatever they can to kind of play on your emotions and get you to let them in. So if you know that those are the red flags beforehand, we want you to be aware that that's what they're trying to do. To protect yourself, unfortunately, we want you to be skeptical. The government doesn't cold call. Contractors in an aftermath of a storm shouldn't be free to be knocking on door to door. Your insurance company is not going to be calling you to verify information and ask for personal information. So if you know all these things beforehand, then in the midst of the storm, in the midst of our emotional storm, you won't get caught up in this fear and this desire to get help, which a lot of us do, especially the elderly, especially those who live alone.
And Rania, is it true, general rule of thumb, if someone calls you and they ask for personal information, don't give it to them. If someone shows up at your front door and you don't know them, they're a stranger, do not let them in, do not give them cash. And a common tactic is also for someone to say, hey, if you just give us X amount of money, then we can order the supplies we need to do these necessary repairs on your home. Again, red flags that this is a scam.
Absolutely. And we talk about it all the time. And if you go to crime-stoppers.org, we actually list them out for you. But here's another one. There's a lot of people that will come to the front of the house and say, well, we don't want to come in, but we want to check the back. We heard, that there's a problem with the gate, or a problem with the fence, or a tree fell, or we anticipate there's an easement issue. They get you to walk around the back of the house with them. Again, they've never asked to come into your house, but what's happening is once they do that, they have other people that then go into the home and rob the house. So we have to think about all of these things. It's unfortunate in the midst of all the different things we worry about that we have to understand that scammers see this as an absolute opportunity to make money or to steal from those who are vulnerable, those who are distracted, those who are worried. Again, having the conversation alone is a huge step to avoiding these problems, and also letting scammers know this is a good population. These people know what's going on. They don't fall for our tricks and tactics, and they move on for better or worse.
Yeah. And, thinking about those adult problems and trying to fend off scammers, that's one thing. But we often forget about in these times, there are little people kind of watching the adults and looking at our every move. So you have some advice for the kids who might have developed this, and unknowingly developed a fear of storms. What advice do you have for parents?
So storms, they're very, very scary for young kids. They're not part of the planning process. They see sort of the aftermath of the flooding on TV. You might have had a horrible situation yourself where you've had to evacuate and it's been frightening. What we want to do is start talking to them beforehand. Hey, a storm is coming. What are your thoughts? What do you know about a hurricane or a horrible rainstorm or a potential tornado? What thoughts come to mind? Okay, do you know what mommy and daddy or whomever in the family, do you know what we do to prepare for this? We want you to be involved actually in what we're doing to prepare. Here's how we're preparing. We're going to make sure we have the proper food in the pantry, or we may have to leave the home, and here's where we're thinking of going. Giving children sort of that knowledge and power actually takes some of the fear away and keeps them from getting lost in the emotion of it. Little tricks, what is this next storm going to be? Oh, it's a bee. What would you name it if it were a bee? Or do you know what the meteorologists are naming it? Here's what they're expecting, or here's what's changing. All of these things help ease a young person's mind, in addition to the fact of keeping them in the loop. We think we can stay home, but if something were to happen, we're going to head to grandma's house. Is that okay with you? Would you choose a different place? Do you think we need to go to a hotel? You may not take their advice, but getting them in the conversation and giving them an opportunity to share their opinion gives them a sense of power and control, and might actually allow them to share some of their concerns and maybe unrealistic concerns. And doing this with my own children when they were little, I learned that one of them thought, our physical house was going to wash away, and meaning the entire thing would pop up and sort of go down the highway. No, it doesn't work that way, although water could come into the house. So it allows for conversations that you might not normally have.
Very, very important advice. Rania Mankarious, CEO of Crime Stoppers Houston. We got to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time and advice today. And we hope the power comes back on so you don't have to continue working there at the coffee shop.
I'll be at a coffee shop until further notice. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we know where to find you. And in the meantime, we will share a link to connect with Rania on our website, HoustonLife.tv. Just look for that scene on Houston Life section.